Hey, hope everybody had a great Sunday today. I know there was a lot of shows going on today that had the massive atheist experience and the massive Talk Heathen with all the guests from Faithless Forum. We had a little hangout with them the other day, and that was awesome. So I'm sure they had a lot of fun hanging out with those people and having a lot of call-ins. I did watch a little bit of Talk Heathens because I happen to like the show an awful lot. Didn't get very far into it, but watched enough of it to know that they definitely seem like they're having a good time. I noticed that Josh had called in. I'm sure that was Josh Brister, aka Master Bader, Apologist, Supreme Overlord, Galactic Ruler of all things, whatever the hell he goes by this week. I don't know. Do you know what he goes by, Steve?
I honestly don't know. I don't know the guy. So
Oh, he's had issues with people before. I mean, he keeps doing some stupid shit and then keep on trying to apologize for it, which is fine. I don't care. He seems relatively harmless to me, which is bad arguments. But he says some pretty inflammatory stuff. Matter of fact, when I was watching Talk Heathens, he had said something. It was Shannon and Eric Murphy, of course, two of my favorite people, and he said something along the lines of calling them like amateur. Well, amateur atheist rather than like professional atheist. I'm like, first of all, I don't even know the distinction. I mean, I know these guys. They don't get paid some salary to be atheist, right? I don't get paid to be an agnostic. We're not professionals at that. Now, you might argue that some of them go on speaking tours. You might say that Aron or Matt may be a professional atheist. Okay, I can at least I can understand that argument, but Shannon, no. But that doesn't mean she's amateur by any means, because that has a different connotation, right? These are why words have usages, right? And it sounds pejorative, right? And Shannon was right. Even if she wasn't getting paid for it, even if it was something that like an amateur tennis player cannot get paid, because right, if they get paid, then it's considered to be they have to go pro. It's considered to be illegal, well, not illegal, but against the rules that amateur player can't get compensated for their sport playing. So. And I'm agreeing with Shannon. I'm like, dude, come on. But and then Mr. ID called in to
oh my gosh.
to the atheist experience. I watched a little bit of that. Was it the atheist experience or was it Talk Heathen? I think it was Talk Heathen. I don't think I watched it today because it was with Kyle, Arn, and Jamie Boone. So it had to be Talk Heathen. And man, I mean, I don't think Mr. Intelligent Design has a clue what the phylogeny challenge is. I don't think he has any understanding of it whatsoever. If you don't read Arn's book, you probably wouldn't either. But Aron has a series of questions, and he goes through and just kind of says, "Okay, where does this become the basal kind?" He had no idea what the questions were, and then Aron kind of got him. I got to admit, Aron. This is what's funny because Aron is good on the fly with certain things, right? He's not a critical thinker by any stretch of imagination, and he really thought really well on this with Mr. Intelligent Design. Mr. Intelligent Design said something along the lines of, he asked him how many different kinds of birds are there, and Mr. ID was like, well, there's one bird kind, and I was like, well, according to the Bible, there are many kinds of birds. It says many kinds of birds, or many. What's the actual words? But many types of birds or something like that. And he's like, your own Bible says there's many kinds of birds, and you're saying there's only one kind of bird. Which one's right? Are you going to believe the Bible because you're a Bible literalist? Well, and I thought he nailed ID. Did you listen to that part?
I honestly have been busy with school, so I haven't really been on YouTube that much lately.
Okay. Well, it was really amazing because Mr. ID just doesn't listen to anything. He doesn't. You can't have an argument with somebody who's not willing to have a give and take. Somebody who's not willing to listen to the arguments and address them, right? And in that particular case, Aron made a very logical argument, right? So I know Aron has the ability to do these things, and of course, I love Aron. But there are exceptions to every rule, right? And on my Facebook page just recently, Stephen Hoyt was arguing something that I've argued for a very long time. And a comment left by Aron was, how does this help your argument? This is like a double negative. And how does this help your argument? And I was kind of taken aback. I was like, how is it not helping Stephen Hoyt's argument? Stephen Hoyt's argument is the same argument that I'm using logic. And I explained to him again, the logic. Uriah Christensen, who we know is very, very good at logic, he made a more formal logical argument using modus ponens. It was fine. I mean, I couldn't find any errors with it, but it was the same type of argument. And so I asked Aron, and I haven't got any feedback yet from him, but I asked him. I said, do you agree that if the conclusions if the premises are true and it's logically valid, then the conclusion must be true. It must logically follow from the premises, right? I don't think anybody would disagree with that, would you? Oh, by the way, I've got Stephen. You're not Stephen Hoyt, but a different Stephen. Don't confuse them. Steve, yeah, Steve's a theist. So, well, I guess I don't know what Stephen Hoyt is. Some days he's a theist, some days he's not a theist. I don't know. He claims to be a Christian who doesn't believe in God. I whatever. I like the guy, but he has a weird ontology. He really does. He really does. But anyways, so you saw what we were talking about, right, Stephen?
Yeah. Well, I was looking up a while back, and he made a snide comment about like, people aren't born believing God or something like that, and they just started going a regressive chain. And yeah, basically he was trying to argue. Yeah, and then that's where Steve Hoyt made the point that basically, under the premises of his argument, Rock is not an atheist either. It's a theist by default, according to Aron's logic.
Right. That's exactly what his premises were. And here's the thing. It started off with a post. And by the way, thank you, Joshua. Yes, my hair is. You want to come in here? I don't think she's ever been here. Joshua, have you been in here? I don't think she's ever been in. She comments on live feed and Twitter, but hasn't been in. But yeah, my hair is getting definitely long. But anyways, so the comment I made was this. I said, I've never, no, what was, you know what? Let me find the comment. So I don't, well, I'll just paraphrase it. So the comment was basically like this. I'm really amazed when people tell me what my positions are. And I'm really amazed when I say something along the lines of, I was never born an atheist. And then they call me a liar, right? It's not that they say, hey, I disagree with you, Steve. I think I think everybody's born an atheist. Let's talk about it. No, they jump to automatically, you're lying, Steve. I even had Aron tell me that I was lying twice in this thread so far, I think. I know for a fact once, but I think it was actually twice. And he called me a liar. And I'm like, all right, come on, man. I love you to death, bro. I mean, you come on the show, and I have the utmost respect for you, dude. But I would never call Aron a liar. He may be mistaken. He may be wrong. But he is just not a dishonest guy, right? I would never call him a liar or lying. And, of course, I would expect the same thing in return. I don't lie. I'm not a liar. You want to pull this, have you ever lied before? We've all lied before, but it's usually really, really minor white lies, and it's for greater cause, right? No problem with that.
Yeah.
Virtuous. But, I've never lied to anybody anything substantial in the last like 6-7 years, right? I can't say that I didn't before because sometimes you have to save your ass. But when I'm on YouTube, no, everything I put out is legit 100% because I don't want to be caught in a lie because people try that. People play this game of gotcha, right? So I think it's better to tell the truth or not say anything. Those are the two positions I have. Tell the truth or just shut the fuck up. But he called me a liar. And I'm like, okay, a little disappointed on this, but let's work it out. And so the argument was that, if babies are atheists, then by the same reasoning, rocks are atheists and computers are atheists and stars are atheists. And Aron had said that he doesn't really see a big problem with that. He doesn't necessarily ever say he agrees with it. I've actually heard him say he doesn't agree with it before in a hangout, if I recall, but he's never actually said that he doesn't disagree with it. But he at least says it's sensical, which is not a word, by the way. But he says it's not absurd. I think it is absurd, but that's a personal choice argument, what we find to be absurd, right? But what isn't a personal choice argument is the logic. And so I want to go through the logical arguments that we had with you guys. And I want to see if you guys can substantiate the argument or, prove it to be wrong, disprove it, and show which premises are incorrect, if the logic is wrong and it's invalid, or that you don't substantiate a premise, and why. So I'm going to be screen sharing that in a second. Now, here's the thing when you do this. If you do not reject a premise and you don't evaluate the argument, then the most you can say is it is an unvaluated argument. It stands as is, right? You have not disproved the argument. You can't say, oh, well, you haven't proved the premises to be true. Well, you don't prove premises to be true. You can, but premises are taken axiomatically. So it's not up to me to prove a premise. That's ridiculous. It's up to you to accept them or not. If you don't accept it, you need to tell me why, right? Well, you can say, well, that's argument from ignorance. Telling me you have to disprove, something that you're asserting. No, it's not argument from ignorance. Argument from ignorance is saying I'm right. This is true, unless you can show it to be false. That's an argument from ignorance. I'm saying I'm asserting it for your evaluation. If you can't say that it's false, the most you can say is I don't accept the argument. Okay, fine. Then it's undefeated. It's unchallenged. But if you say that the argument is wrong, then you have a responsibility to show which premise is incorrect. Would anything I just said, Stephen, or anybody in the live chat, would anybody disagree with that's how you should approach these kinds of arguments?
Mm. No, I fully agree. Basically, you
Okay.
just put, yeah, if you're starting in a position and you're interacting in a dialectical, basically, not necessarily a debate, but just a conversational discussion, and you're taking a position, you have to give valid premises and a conclusion to justify it. So, yeah, I would not ever agree with that.
Okay, fair enough. All right. So yeah, because I really bugs me when I hear people say or see people say, "Oh, well, you haven't proven your premises to be true." Well, so the frick what? I don't know what that even means. They're assumptions. You don't prove assumptions. But like I said, can you? If I say assume 1 + 1 = 2, I can still prove that. Well, theoretically, you can prove it as a huge proof. But anyways, all right, so here we go. Now, again, I want you to tell me first if you think we're going to do Uriah Christensen's argument first. His is a little more formal. Mine's very informal with natural language. The reason I do it that way, I could do it like Uriah does, but the reason I do it more informally and then go back later and do it more formally is that I talked to Ozzy on this a long time ago, and Ozzy made a really brilliant point, like he usually does. And he says, Steve, it's great to be able to make a formal argument and do it logically with the proper symbology, but if you have to spend too much time to breaking it down for people, then they're not really understanding it. Just write it in natural language. People know that I can write in basic logic, so I'm not trying to prove that I have a basic understanding or anything. I don't have anything to prove by that. I'd rather write it in a very informal, natural way, and then people could follow along and go, oh, okay, this makes sense, because I think it's easier to read that way. Fair enough.
Yeah.
Hey, much. Rags, we need your dog ass in here because we know you're brilliant on logic. Oh God, sorry. I need some water. Sorry. I really tried there, Rags. I really did. Sorry. Okay, I'm better. But the link to join is in the description there, Rags. All right, so let's start off with the Uriah's thing, and I'll screen share here. I'm still coughing on that. Rags and logic. Kill myself. All right, so let's screen share. Make sure I get the donkey porn away here. Okay, can you see this all?
Yeah, I can see it.
Okay, so I've got my couple screens here. One of them I'm watching the live chat, so I can see you guys, and the other one I can see that Rags came in. All right, so here we go. We're going to start out. Like I said, we're going to go do Uriah Christensen's. Well, I know what I'm asking you, Stephen. Should we do mine first, which is informal, so that people can understand it first, or Uriah's first?
Let's start with you first, and then jump to Uriah's.
All right, so mine's written in a very natural language. Thank you, RJ, for that super chat. Thank you, buddy. People that get people that I found out that people that subscribe to RedTube, what is it, RedTube? They get like $2 a month super chat to anybody they want. Is that true? I've heard that. Yeah, third screen reserved for porn. Thank you. See, just I got it right. See, I have the big screen for that, right? All right. So I responded because what happened was Stephen Hoyt said, rocks lack a belief, there are no deity. Therefore, rocks are atheists on your reckoning. And Aron responded, you seriously think that using a double negative helps your position instead of mine, which is not a double negative. A double negative, Aron, is not P. Right? So what is not P? P. Right? So that's not a double negative. I do not believe God does not exist. It's not a double negative. I've had other people try to say that before. It's not a double negative. If I say, hey, Stephen, do you believe that the gumballs are even? And you say, I do not believe that the gumballs are not even. That just tells me that you don't have a belief that they're not even or odd, or no, they're not even. So if you say, I do not have a belief that they're not even, all I know is that you may not have a belief either way, or that you might believe they're odd. There we go. Right? I can't say which for sure. I have no idea. It's one or the other.
There we go.
Right? But it's not a double negative. It is informative, because one's in the propositional content and one's in the negation of that. So if the propositional content is, I believe the gumballs are odd, then the negation of that actual proposition is, I do not believe. Then the gumbels are odd. Now, the negation of the propositional content itself for the belief would be I believe that they're not even. But if I just say that I believe that the gumball, I believe that the gumballs are not even, I can either substantiate that or I can't say no, right? I don't substantiate it. I believe that or I don't believe that, right? Either one. But either one, if I believe that the gumballs are not even or I do not believe the gumballs are not even, it doesn't make it a double negation. Does everybody understand that? Okay.
Yeah, either way, if you believe it or not, it's still not double negative.
Not a double negative. Double negative is not, right? So Aron got a little confused there. Okay, so I asked Aron, I said, it does help his position. He's saying God does not exist. Rocks lack a belief in that proposition. They are weak theists, and a lack of belief God does not exist, thus theist, using your quote-unquote reckoning. And I said, if you don't allow for that, then you're arguing a special pleading. All right, so let's dive into the argument, and as we go through it, you guys tell me if you guys accept the premise. If anybody who doesn't accept the premise, tell me. The way you would normally write this, if I accept the premise, you would put 1 to accept, and you put negation of 1 not to accept. So if I was going to like write something to where I said, okay, I don't accept your argument, like in this, I have 5 premises. So I'd write it like this: number 1, 2, 3, 4, and then it would look like that in the live chat. And what that means is I don't accept 1, I accept premise 2, 3, and 4. I don't accept the conclusion, not because the argument's wrong. I just don't accept the conclusion as being true. You can accept, you can reject one premise and still agree with the conclusion, right? Because if not, you have the fallacy. So the conclusion still could be true. But in this case, I would be saying one premise is wrong, and then I think the conclusion also is wrong. All right, so here we go. Premise 1. If a rock does not accept the proposition of atheism, where not P is God does not exist, they are, I'm sorry. If a rock does not accept the proposition of theism, P, God exists, they are a weak atheist. Does anybody not accept that premise? I'll learn how to speak one of these years on YouTube. Rags, what about you? You're my go-to. I hate to say this.
Layman?
I love this. Well, I was gonna say test dummy, but yeah.
Yeah, I'll be your logic test dummy.
I love you, Rags. Where have you been?
I've been here. I've never left.
Oh, okay.
I'm on Discord with the rest of the normal humans, the normal people.
Discord.
Let me see. If a rock does not accept the proposition of theism, so God exists, they are a weak atheist.
Yes.
I assume so, right?
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, somebody said, "Well, atheism is a position, Steve. Rocks can't hold a position." That's irrelevant. That's a semantic argument.
It's right? Something that anything that doesn't believe or that doesn't accept the proposition of theism is atheist.
Yes. Right.
Whether it's real or not, that's just like
that's okay. That's going to be arguing, right?
All right. Well, so that's one of those things where you're like, okay, so sure, Rock's an atheist. So are people. Let's focus on the people.
Well, hang on. Well, Rock's are theists too.
Oh, really?
That's the argument.
So they don't accept the position of atheism.
Well, hang on.
If they don't accept the position of atheism, they're by default a weak theist.
Which would be a theist by the same reckoning, right? This is the argument that we're doing here, Rag. So, so it makes no difference whether somebody can something can hold a proposition or not, or evaluate it. That literally is a semantic argument. We're not arguing semantics; we are arguing logic. Okay, so it's completely irrelevant. And I do agree with that, by the way. Rocks cannot hold a position, but I would disagree with 1 as well. By the way, I think this argument is flawed, unsound. Really, I mean, it's my own argument. It's unsound, but I wrote it that way because people that agree with these things are the ones that are arguing for this. Aron would have to argue that proposition is true, would he not?
Why would he have to? Fill me in.
His positions.
What are Aron's positions that are specific to this?
That anything that doesn't accept that God exists would be an atheist. He has a dichotomy, either an atheist or theist. That's it. There's the only 2 things that he has. You're not one or the other.
Whether
a false dilemma.
Well, it is a false dilemma. It's a false dichotomy, yes. But this is his ontology, not mine.
So he's saying you either believe in it or you don't believe in it.
No, that is the dichotomy, right? There's a difference.
Or he's saying you're either an atheist or a theist.
Yes, and he's using atheist to mean I don't
lack
believe.
of belief.
Yeah. So it's kind of hard because I know the terminology that he's using and I know the terminology I use, but he uses his own terminology and There's a disconnect there. But this is
Okay.
we're doing an internal critique. We're doing his worldview. We're doing his reasoning, right? This isn't my reasoning. I don't agree with this argument.
All right.
It is valid though. It's a valid argument, and Uriah's is valid as well. But this is why I think that defining things loosely and imprecisely and in a very colloquial way leads to these kinds of absurdities. That's the argument. And I think these are absurdities. He doesn't think it's absurd that Iraq is an atheist, so he can't think. I don't know why you would think it's absurd that Iraq is a theist, right? All right,
so a weak theist is somebody who doesn't accept the position of atheism.
I would say more specifically, so there's no ambiguity. A weak theist,
hard atheism.
No, a weak theist would be somebody who doesn't accept the proposition that God does not exist.
Okay.
That way you eliminate any semantic arguments there, right? But what is atheism?
We wouldn't want to have those here.
Yeah, because I can't stand semantic arguments. This is why I do the logical. People.
No, I gotcha. I'm very vulgar.
People, you know what's funny, Rex? I get accused of doing semantic arguments all the time. Oh, Steve always loves semantics. No, I don't. Stop saying that. I hate semantic arguments. Well, I should say I like a good semantic argument with intelligent people where we know we're having a semantic argument. Those are fun. But this isn't one of those times, right? These are not semantic arguments.
This isn't a fun one.
This is fun, but it's not semantic.
Oh, okay.
Keep up, Rex.
But it's not semantic. Not this.
No, because I'm arguing.
No, not this. This isn't semantic.
Not this. Yes.
Okay.
He's getting it. By the way, I hope you're drinking tonight. You might need it in a few.
I drank earlier. I did a long EFAP, so I might get another drink. It's late. I ain't got shit to do. I work from home. Fuck it.
Nice. Yeah.
I FAP old school. I don't know what an EFAP is.
That's the podcast to do with Mahler and Wolf. We had ER on. Things went great.
Oh, I have to listen to that. That's nice. I'm going to do a political hangout. I wasn't going to do it tonight, but I wanted to read a little bit more on it. But maybe tomorrow, if you're interested. I don't know if you're still in the politics, Rex, but I wanted to sidetrack. We do it. We go from rap.
More concepts, more social stuff.
Okay, so one quick side note. I want to do a hangout probably tomorrow or the next day. I want to argue one way or another, have arguments. Did Trump commit obstruction of justice? I've read, I heard, Napoleano from Fox. I've heard, who is the other?
Well, I mean, I don't know a lot of the fine details around that, but isn't the Mueller report kind of, now that that's out, and I was like, okay, there you go.
Well, yeah, but the Mueller, okay, well, I don't want to get too much in it, but if you read, who was it? He's a lawyer. God dang it. Starts with a D. Anybody remember? He criticized Napoleano just recently on it. This is why I wanted to do research on it.
I can't for the life of me remember his name.
Djokovic. But anyways, it's an interesting argument because he's one of them is arguing that he committed obstruction of justice. One's not, and the reason he said it's not is only as to obstruction of justice if he did something that wasn't within his legal ability to do so. And that's the question: did him ordering people to fire Mueller constitute obstruction, even though it never took place? Senator Graham argues that it never came to fruition, therefore nothing wrong, which I think is a lousy argument. It doesn't have to come to fruition. But I think the better argument was did he ask anybody to do anything that wasn't in his ability to do so? And if so, does that constitute obstruction of justice? I think so.
I don't know enough about the topic, so I probably wouldn't be the best to talk about the finer points of the law and things like that.
Well, that's what we're going to get into because I have to do a little more reading on this. Alan Dershowitz.
Yeah, I just that is definitely not my area of knowledge.
Well,
my understanding is that he tried to get a bunch of people to do shit that if they would have done it, would have been obstruction of justice.
And that's the way I look at it.
Would have done it.
Yeah, that's
and they didn't do it. They said, "Okay, Trump, yeah, I'll get right on that," and they didn't do it. And only for that reason was the investigation not interrupted by his initiatives. So, as far as I'm concerned, if you're trying to obstruct it and you're the president, you might as well be obstructing.
Yeah, I kind of look at it that way too. But again, was he within?
I don't know. There's a part of me that when I hear that, I'm like, well, if it's so cut and dry, then
I don't think it's cut and dry. No, I think there's legal arguments to be had either
Well,
way.
the argument basically is that the investigation that happened was about collusion, and so he could not say anything about obstruction, but he laid out very clearly the way that he wrote out the report. It was clear that he believed that he was trying to obstruct, but
Right.
he couldn't. He literally said, "I can't say this because that's beyond the scope of this investigation, but
Well,
I
he left
think
it
it's
to Congress.
warranted to investigate
Yeah.
further into obstruction."
Yeah. That's why I'm
Oh.
surprised with Alan Durkovich or Durkovich. I can't pronounce his name. I agree with, normally if something is within your, if you're doing something within your capacity, in your job function, then it's not obstruction. But if it's something that is not required for your job function, if I did something that I knew would be obstruction, even though I'm legally able to do that thing, I would think that's obstruction of justice.
I don't know enough
You
about
don't have
it.
to be a legal act for that. But anyways, all right.
Well-
So let's get back to this because that's going to be a whole different thing.
Well, I mean, he had the intention of doing it. It was just not
Clearly.
carried out. But,
Clearly, he had the intent. Yeah.
So,
I don't think
well-
anybody even would disagree with that, right?
well,
Well, now apparently he's putting up a huge fight because now they're trying to look at his bank records and shit, and he is throwing hell at them.
Yeah, he has no
So this
transparency.
is going to get messy as
He's
shit.
the first president never to release his tax records. You know that? Yeah.
Wow.
All right. So anyway, so number one, you guys, again, stepping into Aron's worldview, would you accept that?
I
You'd
mean,
have to.
Yeah.
His whole
Yeah.
defense when you brought up the whole thing is baby. He brought up the babies thing, but it was babies don't hold the belief that God exists.
Right.
Period.
All right. So number two, if Iraq does not accept the position of atheism, not P would be God does not exist. They are weak theists. This is just mirroring, right? I mean, this is literally your P or not P, right? If you have every P, you have a not P. So the negation of P is God does not exist. So if you mirror it, that atheism is just not accepting God exists, then by mirroring that, not accepting God does not exist would be a weak theist. Accept that proposition?
Yeah, I mean, according to Aaron's own thinking, basically these two premises are valid, but in reality, because
he would have to. I mean, I would think that he has to agree with this, or it would be special pleading.
it is. If you're saying no, this is not true, well, you have to show it, and if you can't, then yeah, you're by default committing a fallacy, special pleading.
Keep losing the live chat here. Sorry. All right, there we go. All right, so yeah, so this one, I can't see how if you deny this one, and then you'll get down to the next ones. It's special pleading. So everybody in the live chat, we caught up. Okay. Number three, Aron Ra asserts weak atheism as atheist impliciter. I'm using the term simpliciter here, so we differentiate, right? Just as a simple form of atheism that we're just going to call it atheism. So Aron Ra asserts weak atheism as atheism, right? So if somebody says they're atheist, to him, all that means is that they lack a belief in God, correct?
Aron Ra asserts weak atheism as atheism. Yeah, a lot of people would put that underneath atheism because
Right.
it's part of a umbrella term that people use generally.
Okay, so if you say you're a weak atheist, you according to Aron Ra, that's a fit. Now
That's like a specific atheist, a more specific atheist.
Well, I'm just going to call it atheist impliciter, because he thinks that the reason being is there's a difference between a necessary and sufficient condition. I argue, and Ozzy argues, that the belief that God does not exist is a sufficient condition for atheism that distinguishes it from other positions. Lack of belief does not distinguish between anything. It is a necessary precondition for atheism, but it cannot be sufficient. It just logically does not hold that way, because if you believe something to be true, you don't believe it. But if you don't believe it, doesn't mean you believe that it's not true. The converse is not true. Hold from the statement. So you cannot say that lacking belief is both necessary and sufficient here, because we know there are people out there that don't. If you say that I don't believe in God, I don't know if that means you believe.
Yeah. I think
semantic sense. Or at least I think in a colloquial sense is where it works. Just talking to people generally, but
Okay.
yeah, if you get down to it, that's fair enough. Yeah.
All right. So far we're at three three things that are true. All right, so number 4, and this goes back to number 2, and again, I don't annotate it, but it would be from premise 2 and 3. To avoid special pleading, Aron Ra must affirm weak theism as theism simpliciter. Same thing, just mirroring. This follows from
I mean,
and from
does he come up with a rule that would separate the two, like some sort of a condition?
I mean, a
about
justification.
theism?
That's a good point. He
Does
would have
he?
he would have to provide a justification. The only justification I've heard for this, and is not a good justification, is when somebody says, well, by definition, theism is a belief that God does not exist. Again, now we're going back to semantics. That is semantics, right? That's dealing with meanings. This is why I really differentiate between a logical argument and a semantic argument. So you cannot, that is not a justificatory condition. You can't say by definition, theism is this, because we're not arguing definitions. We're arguing the logic, right? And there is no by definition. It's just that the word theism is generally accepted as somebody who believes that God does not exist, right? Or somebody who believes that God does exist. But it's not prescriptive. We don't say anybody who believes God exists must be a theist, although it would hold, but we don't prescribe the label to that description.
Yeah, it's the dictionaries that change.
Yeah, so things do change, right? But we don't look at an object and we don't say we are prescribing this label because of these attributes. It's just the opposite. We say this label has these attributes that we just decided because it's how it was used. So there's a big difference between descriptive and prescriptive here. So what do you think there, Steve? Do you think he would have to accept number 4 or he would be special pleading?
Yeah, he has to accept 4, otherwise it's special pleading, because if you're defining weak, because if you're saying Rock does not believe in the non-existence of a deity and you classify as weak atheism, then it also follows in the same way with theism. I'm sorry, I made that mixed up, but yeah, in essence, he would have to accept 4, otherwise it is a special.
Well,
pleading.
you just have to justify the inverse is different somehow.
I got the video playing.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So yeah, you would have to justify that. Okay, it is weak atheist here, but it can't be weak atheist here. Now, I got to tell you, if you go to use of reason, Dr. Malpass makes the same mirroring thing. So I really don't think you want to go that route. It would be definitely special pleading, I think. So, all right. So number 5, if a rock is both a weak atheist and a weak theist, then S. Oh, you know what? I did change that from S to Aron. I took this from a generic version that I had where I just used S as a
Free.
I missed that. Okay, so there we go. All right, so if a rock is both a weak atheist and weak theist, then Aron Ra would be asserting that a rock is both an atheist and a theist from 3 and 4. So I don't think anybody is really going to attack the logic here. It's valid. I mean, it's a valid argument, right? It's a deductive argument. But if you accept all the premises, then the conclusion has to follow from the argument. So if you assert that a rock is a atheist, a rock is also a theist as well, using the same reasoning, the same reckoning as Steve put it, right? If weak atheist is now atheist, then weak theist is now theist. Therefore, a rock is an atheist and a theist, which is a contradiction to me. It's an absurdity.
What would you say a rock is?
Neither. None of the above. It's a non-theist. It goes in the non-theist category.
Non-theist?
Yeah. I mean, if you want to get strict,
is it also a non-atheist?
Yeah.
Okay.
Pretty much.
Yeah. If you want to get into a strict dichotomy, all you do is do this: A or not A. That's called the law of subliminal. So you just instantiate with something. Theist
The law of what?
or not theist. Atheist or not atheist. Rags or not rags. Those are all dichotomies. Right?
Like the opposite of white isn't black, it's not white.
Right. Those are things called contraries. There's a lot of things out there called contrary. Good and bad are not dichotomous. They're contraries. You can have things that are neither good or bad, right? So the way it works is this: a dichotomy is something that you're either one or the other. Okay, one or the other, right? So theist or not theist, you're in one category. Anything that's not in that category has to be in the other category. Okay, make sense?
Mm-hmm.
You're a car or you're not a car. It's one or the other. Now there are some exceptions to this in other logic, by the way. Paraconsistent logic, a lot of that goes out the window and stuff like that. So don't get too fixated on it. But we're talking about classical logic. Now, a contradictory, which is atheism, theism, as is normally held in philosophy, means that if one is true, the other must be false, or vice versa. They both cannot be true, and they both cannot be false. Now, think about this, right? You would agree, Rags, that ontologically God exists or God does not exist, right? That is a dichotomy.
Yeah, he has to be one or the other.
Okay, that goes back to dichotomy. God exists or God does not exist.
Yeah.
So if you believe that God exists, if God does exist, it would be true, right? If you believe that God does not exist, and that is the case, then that's false. So theism would be true. Atheism must be false. Atheism is true. Theism must be false, right? But they both cannot be true. You cannot have God existing and not existing at the same time. And they both cannot be false, right? So it has to be one or the other. God exists or God does not exist. Theism is true or atheism is true. One or the other. Okay. Good so far?
Yeah, sure.
Now, contraries are a little bit different. Contraries are such that one is true, the other is false. They both can't be true, but they both can be false.
Okay.
I'll give you an example. Christianity and Judaism, right? One has to be true if Christ is the risen Lord or whatever, and then the Judaism has to be false, right? Because the Jews, modern Jews,
well, if one is true, the other can't be true.
Right. So, well, the other one has to be false. If Christianity is true, then Judaism has to be false.
Yeah.
And if Judaism is true, then Christianity has to be false.
Or there's no God and they're both untrue.
Or exactly, right? They both can't be true, but they both can't be false. That's why they're called a contrary.
All right. I'm picking up what you're putting down.
Nice. And this is really, that's huge because people always say things like good and bad are dichotomies. No, they're not. Or what is a rock? A rock's not good or bad, right?
So is an opposite a dichotomy or a contrary?
It depends on the type of opposite, right? Theist and not theist is a dichotomy. Good and bad are opposites, but they're not a dichotomy.
Okay. So opposites are generally used as contrary terms, would you say?
Yeah, like hot and cold, right?
Yeah.
Hot and cold is contraries, right? Something can be warm, right? So it can't be, they're not a dichotomy. You have hot or not hot, but you can't have hot or cold being a dichotomy because warm is.
Well, since hot and cold are relative, are they necessarily? Because if they're relative terms, if you're using terms about,
well, all these things are relative. Good or bad could be relative too.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's just, we don't have to think of it as gradient. Just think of it as quantifiable. I mean, either you're hot or you're not hot, right? Either Rags is attractive or is not attractive. We want to use ways that you understand it, right? Either Rags is hot or he's not hot or not hot. But if I say, Rags is hot or he's ugly, that's not a dichotomy, right? You could just be like me, mild, and you say I'm ugly, I'll boot you. But I mean, you don't have to be one or the other, right? It's not a dichotomy between ugly and pretty, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you're a pretty. All right.
I work hard for it.
Good. All right. So let's ask the live chat here. Where are we on the live chat, guys? So far, it looks like everybody here has agreed with the premises and finds the logic to be valid. Does anybody find the logic to be invalid or the premise is not true? And again, I'm not interested in any semantic argument. If you start arguing, oh, well, this means that, or dictionary this, you're in the wrong hangout. We're not.
Someone's saying anything can exist in your imagination, but not reality. Can you prove a God doesn't exist in someone's mind?
How do you imagine a square circle? I don't know what that would be imagined.
That's called a squircle.
I call it a squircle too, actually. But I don't know what I can't imagine a squircle.
Well, you could imagine it. You just can't really comprehend it to be something real, though.
No,
I can't imagine it. If you can't imagine it, how could you comprehend it?
Yeah, I can't imagine it. To me, it's incomprehensible. What is even would it be like to imagine a square circle? I don't know what that would even entail.
Because in my head, I see a square turning into a circle, turning back to a square over and over and over.
That's not a square circle, though. That's just
like me trying to make something it's not and have it be it at the same time.
I can imagine it. Somebody said I can imagine a negative zero. So can I. Zero could be signed in like computer programming. Usually zero is unsigned, but in unitary operators for like computer programming, C+ and all that kind of stuff, you can have plus zero and negative zero for reasons for programming. But so I can imagine that.
Hey, I've been because I never really go to the Zoom site. What happens if I press this here? I'm curious what happens if.
You divide by 0 and we all die.
No, I'm curious what pops up if I try this using directly from the Zoom.
What
Does
he
it
do in my
open a
Hangout?
second instance of Zoom?
I have no idea what you're doing.
Oh, this is interesting. Zoom is weird. I'm doing a Zoom thing. Let's see if this works.
By the way, the outside can't see us. They can only see the what I'm showing right now. They can't see us talking. That's when that. Well, you know what? Now they can. Damn, why didn't I do that before? I wasn't thinking. Damn, now you guys can actually see us. You do my hand gestures and articulations and stuff like that. Just gesticulations.
So essentially, what you would say is it's similar to the black and white marbles thing, where you can't take someone who you say, is there more black or white marbles in this jar, and someone who says, I don't know, and then they say, well, because you don't know, you qualify as someone who believes there's more black. And it's like, well, I qualify just as much as someone who believes there's more white. So how can you put me?
Bingo. You're exactly right. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Well, and I guess the outside chat can't see us. So let me stop sharing for a second. So you're exactly right. When they say like agnostic falls under atheism, no, agnostic's no more near atheism than is theism. Okay. I mean, even Graham Oppie in his book, Atheism and Agnosticism, states that very.
Oh shit! Oh hey, I did a thing.
You did a thing.
I did a thing. Zoom is weird, but I did something weird. I'm fucking around with Zoom. That's what happens if you do that. Yay!
So you divided by 0.
I did divide by 0, and it made a dog magically appear.
Nice. Okay. So yeah, what you're saying is right. If I say, look, I don't believe that they're even. That doesn't mean I believe that they're odd. And so I do not believe they're even. I do not believe they're odd. Now, Aron will call that odd for some reason. They call that odd. Just like, they think that you have to be atheist or even or oddest. They have to. I don't understand. Even though Matt Dillahunty does the gumball analogy, I still don't know why this is confusing. Because he has that analogy and it's right. But
I think it's the conflation. It's the conflation of atheism and non-theism. I mean,
yes,
that's what it is. They're defining it that way.
Thing.
Yeah,
Daniel, that's the problem.
It. Because I know for me, I was a theist, and then I was like, okay, well, now I'm an agnostic. Like, I don't believe in Christianity. I don't know which God I believe in, but I'm not willing to go so far as to say there's no God, because there could be one. And then I started seeing these podcasts like Thinking Atheist and Atheist Experience, and I was like, I wouldn't say I'm an atheist. Like, I'm not willing to say I don't believe, but I want to hear what these guys have to say.
Well,
so then you start listening to it, and then they're telling you, no, we're not saying there's no God. We're just saying we lack a belief just like you. And I'm like, well, I guess they must know what they're talking about. So I guess I must be an atheist then.
It's not that I hate to say they don't know what they're talking about. The problem is that they're only arguing from their group, right? They're
well, it's like the political argument you were saying is like they want people to consider themselves atheists if they fall into anything that's not a theist.
Yeah. To me, it sounds more like if every call that they had to take, or to everybody who was
I get that. Yes.
Like religious, if this was something that you had to go through about the semantics of words and what you are and stuff, I kind of feel like that would cover up the concept they're trying to get across.
I totally agree with you. No, and I've said that before. I understand why they have it that way for this show, but my argument for that is they're not always on the show, right? And somebody says, Steve, you're really mixing Gnostic, agnostic, theist, atheist, and acting like it's some problem. Come on, you're better than that. I'm not mixing anything. Matter of fact, I have 3 blog posts on this. I suggest you probably go read them. I do understand these concepts. I do understand this topic exceptionally well. I'm not mixing anything. People come to me to help get an understanding of this topic. I'm double checked, triple checked by people that know what the hell they're doing. I'm not conflating anything. I'm not confusing anything. I'm not being confused. I understand this very, very well. So you could take what I say, go check it out, or you can just sit there and say that Steve's confused. Fair enough, whatever.
Well, the reality is people have a variety of positions on these issues. And to say that you either get to be this or this is, it's a lot more confusing. If people could actually pinpoint exactly where they stood, just with how they describe their viewpoint, then you'd see there's like a plethora of different stances on this. It's not just, oh, I'm either a theist or an atheist.
Oh, absolutely. There's more granularity. But here's the thing. Look, when I posted that, I was not born atheist, people were calling me a lying. People said I was lying on it, and even Aron says I'm lying on that. Right? I'm like, no, I'm clearly not. I mean, I don't understand how people can think I'm lying on that.
Yeah, lying is kind of assuming people's motives.
It literally is. And so when he's saying something along the lines of, hey, he actually argued this, and I told him he was just flat out wrong. He said, Steve says there's only one legitimate definition of atheism in philosophy. That I've never said. That's absurd. I've even come up with 6 or 7 my own definitions, right? Way it can be defined. It's polysemous. My whole argument is that it's not defined only one way. He argues, and the American atheists argue, atheism is only one thing. On their very page, it says one thing. Your atheism is one thing, a lack of belief. They're the ones arguing that is the only valid usage or definition. That's their argument, not mine. People need to stop getting us confused on that. They're arguing for that, not me. I am arguing it has multiple uses. Damian Dervos, thank you, dude, for super chat. He says, I no longer believe in any religion or God. What am I? Because atheist doesn't fit what I believe in the universal secrets. Look, it's very simple.
The universal secrets.
That's what he says. As I believe in the universal secrets. I think that would be more of a
because atheist doesn't fit. As I believe in the universe's secrets. You believe in the universe's secrets.
I don't know what Acacia Records maybe.
What a strange
perennialism. I don't. I'm
like there are secrets of the universe out there, and because he believes in those secrets, so he's not atheist.
I don't think it follows, Rags. I agree with you. But it sounds like if he doesn't say there's no God or there is a God, then I would just put him in agnostic if he's just suspended judgment on it. But anyways.
Well, what does he mean by secrets in the universe? Is he referring to like some?
It's universal secrets. The secrets of the universe, like He-Man and the secrets of the universe.
By the way, Utopia Buster, it wasn't Ernest Haeckel that came up with Gnosticism. That was Thomas Henry Huxley. Ernest Haeckel was the one that promoted ontology. What is it? Ontology. Oh my God! What is it? Ontology recapitulates phylogeny? That's what it was. Yeah, let me check this out. Ontogeny. Yeah, ontogeny recapitulates phylogeny. That was her.
Duh.
Come on, you're supposed to help me out. Why you let me flounder like this?
No, if you discovered it yourself, you have to pick yourself up on your philosophical bootstraps. That's how you grow.
How did I not? Because I say ontology so much that when I have to say something like ontogeny, I get confused. By the way, if you want to explain to everybody, Rags, what ontogeny is, you can help it out.
Ontogeny is it's a type of bread that comes from northern New Mexico.
So close.
Yeah, it's slightly spongy. They serve it with soups. It's cheese based.
God, you know what? I'm almost going to give it to you. You were so close, but no, it's more closer to relating to how an organism is developed over the history of time. Their morphogenesis.
Basically the same thing.
Basically,
I think it's just semantics. Really,
it would be a semantic argument, right? Whatever it is, I tell you what, ontogeny means whatever you want it to mean. Words have usages, not meaning. There you go. Okay, so all right, so let's get back into the screen sharing here. So far, we're doing pretty well, I guess. Here. All right, you guys ready to move on to Uriah's argument here? I don't think anybody.
Uriah Christian. Who is Uriah Christian?
He's from the Great Debate community.
Okay.
Really smart guy. All
right.
And by the way, I don't think for a second Matt Dillahunty is agnostic. No. Matt Dillahunty in his older videos had even come out and said that, he's talking about his beliefs that gods don't exist. He thinks all gods are bullshit. That's not agnostic. Right. But he won't do it on the show because
that's weird because I've heard him say that he doesn't believe like a god couldn't exist, but he says like some gods like probably definitely don't exist.
Right. I believe that as well.
So he's kind of, because I've heard him say that.
Right. I believe that as well. But that's nothing. But see, that's just weasel stuff. That doesn't tell me if he believes that there are no gods, right? I agree. There's some gods are possible. Some gods aren't possible. We all agree upon that. That's just, I don't know who would disagree with that.
Yeah, I want to know the person who believes every god ever suggested exists. That's
Yeah,
what I would
that's
like to meet.
yeah.
Well,
a
I
lot
don't
of
know if
people
gods
believe
are
shit going on.
possible.
That would be shoot.
Well, the Ocean
That that
Keltoy.
that would be a henotheist.
Well, no, henotheist just believes in multiple gods. But here's the thing.
Anotheists, they believe in a new god every year.
Yeah, they get, and that's a neurotheist.
Well,
A neurotheist. No, I'm making that word up.
Well,
A new.
actually, that would be. Well, sorry, henotheist would be believe in one God as distinct above all others, but
Right.
believe that the others do exist, but
Right.
only one God is superior to all of them.
That's henotheology. Yes.
Not to be confused with anal theists.
That's a different thing altogether. That's what you do on the weekends.
I scream God's name when I take it up the ass. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. As well as I would imagine most people probably would. I think. Okay, so I forgot where I was going. I had that image in my head. Thank you, Rags. I don't need that image in my head. That's for Kyle. Kyle was into all
Which
that.
god I'm screaming is all up to the imagination.
Imagination. Okay, so gods are possible unless you can show that logically not possible. And I know people say that, we'll throw this out. That's an argument from ignorance. No, in modal logic, in possible world semantics, things are possible until they're demonstrated not to be possible. You actually have to prove logical impossibilities. You have to show by what's called a reductio ad absurdum or proof by impossibility or modus tollens that something is not possible, right? So this is the whole argument from like something from nothing. Something from nothing is possible until somebody shows it is logically impossible for something to come from nothing. Nobody's ever done that. So some gods are logically possible. I can posit many gods are logically possible, which means they exist in some possible world.
Well, I don't know. How do we know the world's possible?
What do you mean?
Like if you say that they could exist in some possible world, but what if that world isn't possible at all?
Well, then that would be an impossible world. Possible worlds are possible by.
I guess
this is where I'm going to use by definition, because this is by definition, literally, possible worlds are possible.
I can't believe you turned on me that quick.
This is where semantics would be useful, but something that exists or can exist means it must exist in a possible world.
Does that straddle the line of defining something into existence?
No, because I don't think those possible worlds have ontology, right? These are just abstract things at this point. I'm not a modal realist. I'm a modal anti-realist, right? So just because something exists in a possible world, it doesn't mean anything. It just means that in some possible world, it exists, but that doesn't mean it actually exists. It has no actuality.
Okay.
This is the only actual world, and worlds are indexical, meaning that the world that we're in is our actual world. If somebody was in a different possible world, that world would be their actual world. So it's indexical. But I don't think other worlds have an ontological grounding. I don't think they exist in that aspect. These are just the way logic would work. Real quick, Rags. If something is impossible, it cannot exist in any possible world. If something is necessary, it must exist in all possible worlds. And if it's possible, it must exist in at least one. That is how you do the model operands.
I guess I'm curious why we're talking about other worlds at all, conceptually or not.
They come in handy sometimes. Like, for example, it's going to sound weird, but they actually come in very handy. They actually come in very handy when you're dealing with epistemology and knowledge, right? I don't want to get too deep in this because it's very hard for me to understand. But there's something called sensitivity and safety, which are added in to justify true belief to make it a JTP plus theory because of what's called the Gettier problems. And the Gettier problems basically said, according to justified true belief, there are instances where we think we might have knowledge when we don't. And one of the way they get around that is what's called a truth tracking condition. And a truth tracking condition is based upon how the subject would believe something in the next closest possible world. This is where you get into really detailed modal ontological arguments and possible world semantics. Not going to go down that rabbit hole because, again, very difficult stuff. But you asked, where would you use possible world semantics? You would use it in epistemology.
Okay.
Now,
I would say, like, conceptually, we understand that the world that we live in is built upon a lot of contingent things that could possibly have gone another way.
Yes.
So based on that premise, we can say, okay, well, just because it's possible here, if another possible world where things had gone slightly to the left or whatever, in that world, would it also hold? You can see where philosophically, like, there'd be merit to
there's a name for
considering
that,
those things.
Do you know what we call those counterfactual conditions? Those are called counterfactuals. If Oswald hadn't killed Kennedy, somebody else would have killed Kennedy.
Right.
Those are counterfactuals, right? Yeah, or if somebody didn't kill Kennedy, Kennedy would be still alive. That's a counterfactual. So counterfactual is conditions that did not happen but have the possibility of occurring. Those exist in some possible world. Now, and we're not talking about multi-world theory or quantum, or this has nothing to do with physics. This is completely disassociated with physics. This is actually just modal reasoning. So does that help answer your question, Rags? Just you don't have.
I kind of forgot what my question was.
Where would you use modal? Where would you use possible worlds?
Oh yeah.
Don't think if it helps you. Don't think of them as actual worlds. Don't think of them as like a multi-world
scenarios.
Yeah, that's different. When you have a multi universe, or you have
that's like literal worlds living next to each
worlds
other
that do
in
exist.
some way.
Right. The multi universe, or excuse me, the Copenhagen
multiverse. Yeah.
Well, no, it's Copenhagen versus the many worlds hypothesis. The many worlds hypothesis, these worlds do exist, right? Something splits, there's a new universe created, which bloats your ontology to no end. Don't think of it like that, right? Think of it as just bare possibility,
Like Back to the Future. Okay. Back to the Future, 2 different 1985s.
Yeah. What ifs? What ifs? Yeah. A good way of looking at it is called what if. It's called the subjunctive case. Right, so the subjunctive case is the case of what if. Have you ever heard that term?
No, not the subjective.
No, subjunctive.
Subjunctive.
It's subjunctive case.
No, I have not heard of that.
Okay, so a got some words. The subjunctive case is a case of what it would be if somebody did something different or was possibly different, or if I imagine a different universe, right? If I imagine a different hypothetical. A hypothetical is a subjunctive case, right? Hypothetical, because I'm imagining a different scenario. Does it make sense now?
Okay.
So counterfactuals are subjectives. So I can imagine a counterfactual. I can imagine somebody not killing Kennedy. Doesn't mean that actually happened, right? Doesn't mean in some universe there actually is a universe where Kennedy didn't get assassinated,
or that it could even happen,
right? So just have those distinguish between them. Okay.
All right.
So moving on here to Uriah's. Boy, long way to get to where we go, huh? This is why my hangups are so long. Well,
my stream today was 7 hours. It's fine. We're used to it.
Yeah, thank you. Well, it's kind of good in a way, because think about it, guys. I mean, there's so much about these topics, right? And I really hate when people go into a topic and they're very superficial and they really don't get anywhere in it. It doesn't really do anything for me. Because all right, so Uriah says this: premise 1, X. I don't know why he uses X. I would use S. This is my minor peeve with them. I would use S, right? X is something they use like content, but S is subject. So, but X lacks a belief that God exists.
Plus, when you say X lacks, people think about something else.
Preanal.
There's a lot of things that happen pre-anal.
Yeah, no.
Anal's like Christmas. I mean, like everything happens before anal.
I was reading an article on something along those lines for what they'd have to do in movies the other day. It happened to pop up, and I happened to read it. I'm like, holy shit, man! What an ordeal! I would never make it.
Yeah, sometimes it could be. There's a little prep work that's involved.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, I would never make it in that.
Yeah, it's not like diving into some sweet pussy.
Dude, I took 4,000 milliliters, so 4 liters of polyethylene glycol one time for some intestinal stuff. Never again. Oh my God. It flushes you. It works.
Yeah,
4 liters of polyethylene glycol. That's what it's called. Yeah. Anyways, okay. So you agree with number 1? X believe. This is an assertion that somebody believes whatever it is lacks a belief that God exists. Okay. So number 2. X lacks a belief that God of the cosmos is godless. Now, again, I kind of disagree with Uriah a little bit on here. I don't like adding terms, right? I think if you have cosmos in the second one, you should have it in the first one.
Yeah, it does kind of come out of nowhere. And a lot of people might, especially when you talk about like universe, world, cosmos, it might be good to clarify. Because a lot of people use world kind of like on a grander scale than like planet.
Yeah, I just don't like the word out of there. I think that these should probably be the same. No. By the way, antifreeze is ethylene glycol. Was it ethylene glycol? Not polyethylene glycol. So they're different. I didn't drink antifreeze. That'll kill you.
Yeah, warm you up.
So, but forgetting the little semantic stuff here, the being dependent. X lacks the belief that the cosmos is godless. So, basically, between 1 and 2, would you agree that X doesn't have a belief either way?
Yeah, they seem to be opposites, just reworded.
Okay. Everybody else agree? Live chat, good go.
Pretty much, yeah.
Okay. By the way, live can't see, but I've got numerous people in the hangout here. They're just not on camera.
Hello.
They're not as pretty as me.
Hello,
I don't know.
Rags doesn't want to go on camera because he actually thinks that he's so pretty that if he goes on camera, it distracts from the topic.
Well, freaking I forget his I can't believe I forgot his name. Your co-host. I can't believe I'm
Kyle Curtis.
Kyle. Yeah.
I
can't
don't
believe
forget
I
his
forgot-
name.
Kyle saw me and he was like, "Ugh." He was enamored. So I don't want to get that. I don't want to start that with
No,
other
I know he has a thing for you.
Yeah, boy.
Yeah, boy.
We
But
looking good.
You don't show yourself often, but you have videos.
Very rarely. Yeah, well, from way back, but it's a brand thing.
Yeah.
Besides, I can't show myself off before I'm beach body ready.
Yeah. You probably look
No, I
different from
understand.
the years ago. Okay. Number 3.
yeah.
Yeah. Again, going back to Rags look. See, he's not.
You brought it up.
narcissistic.
You brought it up.
Yeah. Well, it's true. You know,
My hair's longer than yours.
can't help to bring it up. It's you. I am the gayest straight man alive, ain't I?
I exude charisma from every pore.
I don't even remember what the fuck you look like. I've seen you. I don't. To me, it was so whatever. I
Radiant,
couldn't.
overpowering.
I was blinded. Yeah, I was blinded. I couldn't.
Like, you're a theist
Like,
now, boys.
I've seen you. I just couldn't give a description of my life dependent. That's how much I pay attention.
Words cannot express. I understand.
This is. I'm speechless.
Rags, your beauty is so conceptual.
I'm without words. I'm wordless. I'm a wordless. I'm without words, a worded, according to Aron. Okay, so number 3, if X lacks the belief that God exists, X is then an atheist. Okay. I don't agree with these premises, so I will go on record. I think these are unsound, but we're stepping into his worldview, right? So, would you agree that Aron would support that?
I mean, I would say that number 3 is one of those. I mean, if you're on the street just talking with folks, is the only time where you'd be like, yeah.
Okay. Now, but do you actually so far, Rags? Do you agree with all 3?
Yeah,
I mean,
I follow. I get what you're saying. Yeah.
Okay, Steven, do you agree with all 3? Because I don't agree with you. I'm not going to go through which ones.
I understand. It's not like I'm agreeing. I'm not agreeing at their sound. I'm following along with the internal logic of these 3 premises that we're going with.
Yeah, because I mean, the 1 and 2 have an issue because again, I have a hard time even saying certain things lack a belief if they're incapable of having a belief. I think there's a scope issue to be had there, but this gets into really irrelevant stuff.
Max?
But number 3, I definitely disagree with. Right?
Yeah. Well, see, number 1, X lacks a belief.
Well, you know what? I don't even know. Hey, you know what? I don't even disagree with 3. Let me quantify it. Yeah, because the problem is that I think the only reason I disagree with it is insufficiency. And Stephen, you might have to jump in here, because listen to me carefully here, because I know people love to straw man me. Clearly, if you lack a belief, you're an atheist according to colloquial definitions. I've never said otherwise, Stephen. Right?
Yeah, in colloquial usage, you've clearly said this. Ozzy has said this, and almost, at least as far as I know, almost everybody who are non-theists have said this, that in colloquial usage, if you lack a belief, you're an atheist. That's just street talk. That's
right.
legit,
Okay. So
but
nobody has, although we get accused otherwise of that. So if X lacks the belief that God exists, then X is an atheist. The reason I would say this one's false is not because that cannot be true, but it isn't always the case.
Well,
it is
and
conditionally true.
Then it would make the opposite not true. So you'd be kind of left in a pickle.
Well, let's work through it. If all atheists lack a belief, but not all who lack a belief are atheists. I've said that a million times, right? And if you're gonna chomp down and stuff, mute. What are you eating?
Oh, sorry. Reese's Pieces, dude.
Reese's Pieces are that loud?
Yeah, that's pretty loud.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
They might be old. I don't know if they're crunching like that. I don't know, man. Just cut your losses, throw them out.
They're cheap. Buy more. What is the expiration date on those things? 2004.
They ain't fresh in all possible worlds.
Yeah, they're definitely not.
That's just the quality of my microphone.
You got a
good for
crunchy
another
microphone?
year. No, I guess it's just like crispy
Hypersensitive.
sounding.
What microphone do you use? Do you use
This
for?
is a PlayStation headset, actually.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Poor person. What do you use, Steve?
Poor person.
I just use plug-in headphones for my phone.
What are you using, Steve?
It's just a headset. I got an XLR mic, but the cord broke.
What? No, like what you're using now, is that like a Logitech G430? What is that?
I don't remember.
You don't know?
I'll tell you now. They're all busted up, but you know what? The mic's really good. I like this mic.
It works pretty good.
Yeah. All right,
Pretty
so
good for a headset.
yeah, I can't complain. So 3, I'm going to say is conditional. Steven, we accept that?
Yeah, 1 and 3 are conditional.
Sometimes, not always.
Yeah.
Well, again, this is Aron's line of thinking, his mind.
He's going to say yes. Yeah, he would have to say it's true. But I decided I had to throw my 2 cents in about what I would do these as. Okay, so Aron would say 1 to 3 would have to be true. 4, if X lacks the belief that the cosmos is godless, then X is a theist.
Yeah,
now, he would deny this one.
If you lack the belief that the cosmos is godless, then you're a theist.
Now, this is where I think Ra's argument is logically valid, and it'd be sound under the way I think Aron.
Wait, what's my argument?
No, Aron's would think.
Oh, okay.
It'd be sound. But the problem with I have it 4 is not that it's wrong. I think under his worldview, Aron would have to substantiate it. But I know Aron would not. I don't think he would substantiate this, but he wouldn't give a good justification of why. Is the outside chat and Steven, do it make sense to you? I think he would deny this one, but would not be able to give a really good justification of why this one's not true in his position. Because this goes back to the special pleading.
Well, I got to let myself out. I'll be back in just a moment.
he has to go duty outside.
I don't poop where I sleep, Steve, like a barbarian.
Go duty outside like a good doggy.
I don't poo where I sleep. That's nasty.
We know somebody used to. His name was MK. He used to be doing it in bags.
MK?
Yeah, remember? Do you remember MK? Were you around in MK?
No, you'll have to pardon me though. I gotta be back.
All
This
right.
is the crown. I gotta. Yeah.
All right, gotcha. All right, so Steven, I think Aron might balk at that one, but again, that's when Uriah would go with that special pleading. All right, so let's assume that one would be true without having fallacy. Number 5, so X is an atheist 1 to 3 by modus ponens. Let me explain to the people that don't know modus ponens. What he's saying here is that 1 and 3 are such that if P, therefore Q, P, therefore Q. So if X lacks the belief that God exists, then X is an atheist. It is true that X lacks the belief that God does not exist, therefore X is an atheist. So by modus ponens 1 to 3, 5 has to be true. There's just that one's logically valid no matter what. Steven, you agree?
Pretty much. That's pretty much what follows from that.
Okay. And number 6, same exact thing. It has to follow. It's a rule of inference. It's valid. Modus ponens. X lacks the belief that God's cosmos is God. If it would read like this: if X lacks the belief the cosmos is godless, then X is a theist. It is true that X lacks the belief that the cosmos is godless, therefore X is a theist. So if 2 and 4 are true, X is a theist. That is a very valid statement, and it's sound if both premises are true. So 6, 5, and 5 are uncontroversial. They have to be the case. Number 7, therefore X is an atheist and X is a theist. 5 and 6 by conjunction. Straightforward, right?
Pretty much.
So 7 has to follow. So far, 5, 6, and 7, you can't deny. Well, 5 and 6 you can't deny. 7 you can only deny if you have reason to, because if not you have the fallacy. 1, I think, and 2, Aron would agree with. 3 he would agree with. So 4 would be the only one I could see to be controversial to Aron. But then that's where I argue my first argument. This goes back to what I wrote. This would be special pleading. This is why I wrote it the way I wrote it rather than the way Uriah wrote it. Because in my version of it, Sure, I left off the formal logical technical stuff, which I could write just like this, but I left it off because it actually shows to avoid special pleading. I actually put it in there so people understood the argument, because I'm not here to convince people about the logic. I want people to understand the argument. I think that's more important, and then they go learn the logic if they want. But if you want to learn the logic first and then accept the argument, that's fine too. Whatever. But all right, guys in the outside chat, what are you guys thinking about this so far? Let me stop sharing this. I mean, I don't know how Aron could actually say that any of that logic's wrong. I've asked him before, where does our logic fail? I've never gotten an answer. He's never told me which premise he doesn't accept and why. And I told him, I said, because he asked me the other day, and he said, "Hey, Steve, why is it that you worry about this? It affects people's friendships and blah 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 and blah blah." And it was a fair question.
How does this affect people's friendships?
Oh, because we get into fights all the time about.
Why do you get about this?
Oh yeah, this is very controversial.
What a faggot!
Aron blocked me on Twitter because of this stuff.
Wow, what a faggot!
Let's not use pejoratives. I know you are. I know you're gay.
What a massive.
But we don't use pejorative. I know people. It's one of those things that people think these words. If they're a member of that community, they can use these certain words. I don't like these words. So you want to use a different thing?
I mean, loser.
Aron's not a loser. I mean, I like Aron. He's a great guy.
What a silly thing to block people over.
Well, no, I understand.
Oversensitive.
They get inundated with this stuff, right? And I understand it, right? But the question was mostly, why do you bring it up so much? And my answer was a very fair answer. I said, Aron, if atheists are going to take the high ground and they're going to be the ones that promote themselves as logical, rational thinkers, and they build it on a house of cards, and they start with a foundation that is clearly not logical or clearly fallacious, then what are you telling people? Where do you take the high road then? What I'm telling people is logically correct. What I'm telling people is something that is validatable. It is not an argument from emotion. It's not argument from fifis. It is just something where you can show using logic and evidence. And we've shown him these evidences before, right?
Well, why doesn't he just say like, oh, yeah, that's technically correct. I totally agree. Just when I'm talking to people, just trying to get them into the thing, trying to talk to them about some of these broader concepts. I don't want to bring up the nitty gritty. I
think sometimes he does say it's technically. I mean, he's admitted that before. I don't think he even admitted that these were all found in philosophy. Now I think he actually does, but he still holds this weird narrative that atheism is only lack of belief. Par none. That's no other way of looking at it. And by the way, Aron's been on the Non Sequitur show like 40 times. Where have you been on? Aron's on like every week on the Non Sequitur show, every other week. Aron's our big guest.
He loves your show, man.
Yeah, he loves our show. He has fun on our show. I love having Aron as a guest.
Yeah.
And this is
he's
why,
been good. I've seen some of his stuff.
This is why these things are not to condemn Aron. All right. These are to help. I even told him I would love to have you come off air. No streaming. Just I'd love to have you come off air. Boy, that sounded differently in my head. This is what happens when Rags comes around, right?
Come off air?
Yeah.
Like someone blowing on it?
Don't use that as soundbite. Yeah, no soundbite there. But I would like to have him be in a group with a bunch of people and say, can you at least break down these arguments for us, right? Because that way, nobody's watching, nobody cares. I want him to understand these things. I really honestly do. He's brilliant at what he does. He's great at arguing the things that he knows. On things that he doesn't know, not so good at arguing. And so this is where I think there's a huge hole in his argumentation. I've seen it. I mean, when he told Stephen Hoyt that is a double negative, I'm like, no, it's not. And I know other people that know logic, and I know other people that know philosophy explain these things to her, and I know they've told him, just stop, just don't. Because I want him to know these things. I really do. Because I like him. I like Aron an awful lot.
So I think it's hard. A lot of these guys have used these counter apologetics for a long time, and they're, I mean, how do you look back at 1,000 times you said something to somebody and be like, oh shit, I was wrong about that, or, I was putting this burden of proof thing on them that I equally, my beliefs need to be justified as much as theirs do.
Well, he's changed his position once on a major issue. And that took a lot for him to do it. And that was way back when he used to argue that humans were not evolved monkeys. Now he realizes that we are evolved monkeys. But that took a lot of people that knew phylogeny back early in the days to convince him of that. And then one person especially that he had to argue with, and he said the guy was a complete asshole, but he was right. So one day, hopefully, Aron will say, "Hey, Steve's a complete asshole, but he's right." I'm okay with that, but whatever. But yeah, here's the thing, Daniel. What you say makes sense. They put out this narrative for a very, very long time, and they have stuff to lose, and they have a face to lose if they're incorrect about this. This is why I find it weird, because when you're arguing the logic and you're arguing evidence, I've never seen them produce evidence. Aron will produce evidence every so often, but it doesn't help his cause, right? Michael, evidence. Michael, come on, you've been around enough, Michael, to know to mute your mic or not watch the video. Yeah. And so I understand why they don't want to do like a one-on-one, right? Because here's the thing, I always wondered this. Everybody seems to call people out, right? And I have these open hangouts. Anybody can come in. Michael and I don't agree on a lot, but he's welcome to come in and take his best shot, although I'm not hanging this. I have to go here in a little while, so make it quick. But we don't agree, right? We don't agree on a lot of things. But Michael takes his best shot. The only problem with Michael is I can't read 5,000 pages. It's just too much. He writes like that much. I'm like, dude, I'm not going to go break this all down. But I like the challenge, right? Michael's a very smart guy. And so I like the challenge. But I've never heard anybody like Aron or Matt or anybody of those guys go, yeah, you know what? Yeah, I'm just going to talk to Steve and show you guys why he's wrong, right? We'll do a one-on-one. Hell yeah. Really? Okay. And I'm not saying that I want that or I would probably even do it. I don't know. But I don't see them even doing that, right? They'll do it with other people. Right?
Yeah. It definitely brings to mind like the platforming concerns, right? Like the idea, I don't want to elevate this guy. I don't want his message getting out there. But I'm saying, I feel like that's part of what they're thinking is like, I don't want to get this guy more attention by doing some formal debate on the issue.
No, see, I don't think so, because like Matt Dillahunty talked about me on like 4 or 5 different channels, maybe even more.
He mentioned you on the Atheist Experience.
Yeah, so it's not like I mean, I'm co-host of the Non Sequitur Show, one of the fastest growing shows on the internet. People know who I am. We're starting to. I've been around a very long time. That's not going to be a problem. I've had Matt on the show, right? That's not going to be a problem. Aron's on the show, not going to be a problem. I don't need them to elevate me. I'm about the argument, right? I would even do this off air. I don't give a shit about it on air. No offense to people. Fuck you all. My thing is to convince them.
Well, I don't really distinguish between you and the argument. I'm just saying I don't think they want the argument elevated farther than it needs to be.
Okay, and you might have some validity there, but the problem is it's already being elevated. Like my burden of proof argument is talked about over coffee in atheist communities. I literally had people tell me, yeah, we were sitting around having coffee after our meeting and we talked about your argument. I had one person to write me, hey, Steve, this was from the atheist community of Arkansas. They said, hey, can you make a small video addressing our members about your argument?
Arkansas.
Yeah.
For real.
We
exist.
Are you in Arkansas?
I am, yeah. I live here. I was born here.
You're not in that community?
No, I'm not. I'm not in the atheist community of Arkansas.
Yeah, well, they're legit. There's actually.
I believe you. There's got to be some of them out there.
I think there's the Arkansas community of atheists, and I think there's the southern Arkansas.
I guess I just don't identify or am interested enough to like go out and join like a club.
Yeah.
It's just like, yeah, we can. Oh God, it's Sean Astin. But I wasn't like, yeah, we need to. I don't know. I guess it's just not important enough to me, or interest me quite enough to join like a club for it.
Boy, Michael, if you did get some glasses, maybe you would like Sean Astin.
I don't think of Sean Astin with glasses.
I've seen Sean Astin with glasses.
I'm not saying he doesn't. I don't think of it with glasses. I don't think
puffy. He's got the hair's different color, but the hair's like
a little bit.
Yeah. So, hey, Michael, first question: How are you? How's your feet? How's your health? How's
Well, he's a hobbit. His feet better be. His feet are very.
He's like 4'2".
Oh, he is a hobbit. Oh my God, he's a big one, but.
Yeah, he broke his foot or something. I don't know what the hell it was.
You're talking to me, Steve?
Yeah, you.
Oh, hey. I'm fine. I was jumping in because of something called like a logo for or an ana for in language, right? Such that the referencing term points back towards a previous used term in a sentence, right? And so if one says, I am an atheist, I lack belief, then the anaphora is it's via a self-referencing term, different than an objective referencing term. So then if you take another statement and you say, and that's in opposition to, I am an atheist because I do not believe in gods, and atheists do not believe in gods, right? And so the second referent of the sentence, atheists do not believe in gods, right? That's like saying the cup sits on the doily. And so the point is that one becomes an external referent of fact, where in the first case, the lack phenomenologically is pointing to the individual. The anaphore's reference is to the individual.
I agree and I disagree. First of all, you're getting into contemporary rhetoric.
But don't just walk away with that by just saying like that's a negative. Like deal with.
I'm explaining my position as to why I think it's what you're saying is true and what you're saying is not quite the case. First of all, people have to understand we're moving now from logic to contemporary rhetoric. Okay.
But before you say that, this might be one of the reasons that you and Aron Ra are having problems is because you say it's based on nothing and that you're gearing the logic this way. But in fact, this could be a sound basis that he's just not able to articulate.
It quite possibly, right? Okay, but so when I don't want to steer away from the anaphoria and the fact when you're using a literary device or a rhetoric device to have something defined
device like an arrow in logic.
Yeah, something's defined to something, and you have it as a reference back to the original part of the argument. I get that. Okay. But when we're talking about the logic, right? Mm-hmm. When we say all atheists lack a belief, I think you would agree with that, right? That's a factual statement. All atheists, and assuming people are we're going to assume principle of charity, right? We assume people not lying and things of that nature. So,
well, you could hypothetically say that they're aware of the idea, but their relationship to the ex referent of ex theos is unclear. In the referent is unclear, but the statement is not unclear. Hence the lack of belief.
But
meaning I could defer it away from myself, such that you did. Well,
that's
anyway,
a long-winded way of saying the lack of belief, Michael. This is the thing. This is now you guys know where Michael writes like 6,000 pages to say one thing. Name an atheist who doesn't. I keep things simple. You've known me for 5-6 years. Okay, name an atheist that doesn't lack a belief. You can't, because all atheists lack a belief. I mean, it's simple as that.
But you would say some atheists don't have a belief.
I'm not talking about having a belief. We're not getting there yet.
No, here's my point though: is that you often
jump the gun.
The conversation at this point to an atheist is one that says, I do not believe in gods. So you're pointing to the proposition once again.
Right? Can we just focus on what I'm
go ahead. Continue.
Do you agree that all atheists lack a belief?
Not necessarily, no.
Not necessarily. How could you be an atheist?
Not necessarily. Yeah, and that's what I meant. Because one could have a lesser belief. One could have realized a spectral gauge away from something that once was.
Logic.
What's a lesser belief? I don't understand.
Either you believe or you don't believe. We're not doing a spectrum. It's dichotomous. You believe or you don't believe. That's it.
But see, even the word belief, then you could argue and just say, well, see, this is the thing: is doxastic logic is different than
I understand that
logical logic.
So is paraconsistent logic. We're not talking. This is why I have to clarify. We're not talking about paraconsistent.
The word belief is. I mean, there's more to it than it being just merely a dichotomy. But this is my point: is that a lot of modern philosophy is based on focusing on the proposition at hand, as opposed to considering the movement between the epistemological to the phenomenological use of the word belief, right? So, because that's migratable, it's a migratable term when you're talking about doxastic systems.
Yeah, and I'm not I'm not going to disagree with the damn thing you said. I agree with you, but we're not
But
the problem is
because
I don't
it's
want to get into
migratable,
hang
because
on,
it's a
Michael. I don't
migratable
want hang on,
term,
Michael. I don't want to get
then
into nostastic logic. I don't want
but all I'm saying is this: because it's a migratable term, when you say lacks a belief, my focus goes to the term belief at that point because it's
means do not have a belief. Would you I see the problem I have with Michael is that it takes me 10 minutes to get like one thing out because it's just you
Do I
so myopic on it. It is true. I'm gonna break it down very, very simply. Okay. It is true in classical logic, either you believe or you do not believe. Is that a true statement?
Yeah, well, even Frege, he wasn't true and false. It was affirmation
I
and
understand
denial.
Frege and Goich.
It was affirmation and denial. It wasn't true and false. And to agree is different than to.
But we're not talking about propositional content. We're not talking about what is true and false for propositional content. We're not talking about asserting a positive epistemic claim versus a negative epistemic claim. I've read Frege. This is not what we're talking about here, Michael. We're talking about very simple. In classical logic, very simple. It is the case for any proposition. It is either true or not true. Period. There's no qualifier for that. You don't need
in classical propositional logic, the truth tables are framed that way, even though Frege, however you want to pronounce it, when he was laying everything out, did mention things not in terms of true and false, but in terms of affirmation or agreement.
Yeah, and he also argued.
Meaning, let me finish. You're always trying to acquire agreement. Hey, Mike, do you believe that all atheists lack a God? Right there, you're attempting to garner agreement, and that is what the truth or falsity came from. It's what it stemmed from. Originally, it was merely, do you agree about this thing that we're discussing, this discourse, right? This dialectic, right?
Yeah, you're talking. Frege argued more. He was arguing from what was from epistemic statuses, from acceptance or non-acceptance. Rejectivism is what he was arguing. What it means to reject a case, what it means to not accept a case. If you accept the propositional content, are you saying it's true? I get that, but that's not what we're talking about here, Michael. This has nothing to do with
all I'm suggesting is this, right? Because of Frege's interaction with Russell and Russell's Chapter X in Principalities of Mathematics. He has
and on propositions. I've read that as well. On propositions,
right. And so the thing about those contradictions and
I never doubted you for a second.
Go ahead, Michael. Sorry.
Yeah, no, sorry, I'm rambling. But
yes, you are. This is why it takes forever to have a conversation with you.
But no, we needed to do this. It's been a while.
I like Michael. I've always got along with you. You give me shit, and 90% of it I think is bullshit. Not your information. You're smart as fuck, but I think your rhetoric is beyond my ability to do rhetoric.
All I'm trying to do is say this because a lot of the binary of logic, the true and false quest, the quest for a purity within the logic. In order for what? For you to garner agreement on how one is to approach paradigms of proper or orthodox.
No, I don't want to go
universal propositional logic. Is that what you want of everyone that because you obviously brought the coaxial and the monoaxial argument for the.
I have done that. Yeah, I don't accept the mono. I don't accept the coaxial. I do.
No, I know. And that's the point, though, is that because you don't accept it, you argue in favor of the monoaxial almost at the expense of the coaxial. Because
I can point out the issues
has a history.
The difference. No. The coaxial doesn't have a history. You don't find it in the literature much. It's mentioned one or two places. I can actually show. Hang on. I've actually in my blog I've showed what I argue to be epistemological problems with the coaxial position. Okay, Matt Delahanty agrees with one of them, right? I mean, he even says that one part of that agnostic atheism in the weak case. If you're going to say atheism is merely just a lack of belief, it is nonsensical to say agnostic atheist. He agrees upon that. And but here's the thing: we're not talking about coaxial, multi-axial systems. I have a blog on that. People can go read it. But that's a different argument. I admit that one leads more of opinion based, right? That was my opinion given the information. What is not opinion is that a proposition is either true or false.
Right. No, right. But my point in bringing that up though was that at some point when you're getting strict about certain things and certain elements and the focus of the words that are being stated can be accented, such in the case that I referenced belief, and in that case it moved to kind of a phenomenological realm, and it was migratable back to an epistemological, strict propositional analysis realm, right? That you can actually get, it's almost like you're, at some point, you'll have to move to another order logic to justify the preference, let's say, sorry, I'm all over, the preference back to, let's say, a coaxial versus the monoaxial, but I'm not trying to go there. But what I'm trying to say is the focus on the orthodoxy of propositional logic is in question, right? And I'm not, and what I'm suggesting is, in a case where it's either true or false and you cannot come to a conclusion, then you would move to another consideration within the logic. Your logic structure would have to be different. Not.
All right, well, let me read a super chat real quick, because you really are rambling, man. Unapologetic atheist, $8. Thank you, UA. I don't really see an issue with someone taking the agnostic position. I can't see why that's a big hang up with other atheists. Because the reason being is they want everybody in that big tent, right? And they want everybody to take that label, and they'll be the first ones to say, well, we don't want to label the people, and yet they'll say things like, well, oh wait, Steve, if you don't say that you were an atheist when you're a baby, you're lying. They're doing exactly what they say they're not trying to do. They're trying to assign label where there isn't one. Now, Michael, you know me well enough. I mean, I don't go and make bullshit arguments. I don't lie in my argumentation. If I'm wrong, I say I'm wrong. You've known me 5 years, 6 years.
No, I know.
We've been in the trenches of the worst types of argumentational hangouts possible, right? We're bare knuckle, free for all. You have learned to have a thick skin. I don't know people recognize Michael, but one of the reasons we have the ability to do what we do now is we had trial by fire. Right? Would you say that's the case?
I agree. Well, it certainly refined some things and some arguments, and you've definitely developed yours and gotten better, at least with using your symbolic arguments, which I still think are, possibly questionable. I did make some critique on that in a logical response.
Did you see the ones I did? Are those valid? The logic's valid.
Well, yeah, it was your argument between the it was when you were comparing God, how'd you do it? You said agnosticism and weak atheism, and agnosticism and weak theism were like, how did you pin it? Because you made the mirror.
Well, I put them because they're logically the same symbology.
Right. But then my criticism was that you had then made agnosticism somehow equivalent with weak theism.
No, I would.
I didn't want to go there because I don't have it in front of me.
Fine, but I just, the people that do know about that argument, I don't want people to confuse extensionality with intentionality. Okay. When something something that could be extensionally the same may not have intentional considerations. Okay. So these are technical types terms that I don't use it for Michael, but when I say something like agnosticism and weak atheism and weak theism are equal, I'm not doing an intention with intentionality, not with a T, with an S though. Intentionality. Don't try looking up in Google. You're never going to understand this word by Googling it. It's just, trust me, but they are extensionally the same. That was my argument.
Well, I'm trying to pull it up in my head or try to resolve.
The way I would argue with this, like for example, if the people want to know, kind of understand these concepts, 1/2, a fractional notation, is equal to 0.5. There's an equivalency there, right? They're existentially the same. There's an extensionality. Intentionality, there may not be, because 1/2 is a fractional notation, 0.5 is a decimal notation. Intentionality can change the propositional value of a proposition. So if I said to Michael, 0.5 is how you represent the midway point between 0 and 1 in fractional notation, that statement would be wrong, because 0.5 isn't how you do that. But 0.5 is equal to 1/2. But if I change 0.5 to 1/2, now that proposition statement becomes true. So even though they're extensionally equal, intentionality differs, which means that you cannot substitute one for the other in all cases because it may change the propositional truth value state, the proposition value of the truth statement. This goes into Photo's argument a lot, if you guys remember that. But so I want to make it very clear that I'm using this extensionally, not intentionally. So
because
boy,
somehow
that was kind of technical, wasn't it?
when you said that, Steve, it reminded me because it seemed as if I had made the conclusion that you had made agnosticism equivalent to both agnosticism equals theism and agnosticism.
Because logically, the way you would express them logically would be equivalent. Like, how do you express? Okay, to make it even simpler, how would you express Christianity logically in terms of theism? You just say believes P, right? If P is a proposition, God exists, then Christians would be BP. Would you agree?
Well, yeah, but my focus would then be as to what qualifies as a Christian. But the category still, it's just tied to the word Christian at that point, but you're not pointing to anyone's actual belief.
Right. But that's fine.
Yeah.
That's fine. But the way you would express logically somebody who's Christian is BP, right? There's nothing controversial about that. How would you express somebody who's Jewish? BP, right? Extensionally, they're both BP. They both fall under the logic of BP, but they're not the same position, right? Judaism is clearly not Judaism. So agnosticism, weak theism, and weak atheism are clearly not exactly the same thing in that regard, right? But logically, they are both not BP and not P. That was my argument. That logically they're equivalent, and I think you read too much into it, like you tend to do. Because Judaism and Christianity are both logically equivalent. They're both BP. They believe God exists. Right, but they're not the same religion. They're not intentionally the same thing. You can say Christians believe in God, and you can replace that with Jewish believe in God. That doesn't change the proposition, right? That there's no intentionality problem there. Well, but if I say Christian believes that Christ is the risen Lord, and now I change that to Jewish, now that proposition becomes false. Now it's not exactly, they're not intentionally the same. Rags, I'm sorry we're boring you with this. This is really when I talk to Michael, we get really
Steve, I would really say that some Christians could also not necessarily believe in a Christian God, right? Or like it, which is, it would be weird to say, but it would be where you would have a different referent for, like, you get Christ conscious people that feel like, oh, this is what the Bible meant, and so from some exegesis, they're then referencing not Christendom as another individual talking about Christ theism might be thinking, oh, the man, and other ones like, oh, the myth, or oh, my personal experience, or oh, and so the reference of what Christian is then become a little bit wobbly, meaning, and then a Jewish Christian or Christian Jews. Yeah, meaning the overlap, the categories can have some overlapping domain, like, oh, I'm within my conversion from Judaism to Christianity, or Christianity to Mormonism to Judaism,
this goes into scope issues, right?
Anyway, yeah.
It's like the same thing with scope issues, and I'm gonna have to get going here, but I leave it like this. In classical theism, right, a person who's a deist would not be considered to be a theist, right? This is classical theism. But in non-classical theism, the way most of us actually have these discussions, in that scope, in that schema, a deist is still somebody who believes in God. They would be under theism, right? So as long as I know what schema somebody's working under when it comes to Christianity and what they're talking about, okay, fine. But there are different schemas. Would you agree on that? I mean, if I say I'm a deist,
I have Steve. Sorry, I'm gonna say this. I have a problem with your conception of what you're thinking another person is believing, meaning as if all of what you would consider like on-off switches in their beliefs are they're able to articulate, or that you would even be able to question and fetter it out, such as to generate like a logical description of their cosmology or their theism. Yeah, that's, I mean, meaning I find this is what I notice in discourse, right? Is that that there is kind of this preference taking, and there's kind of a lock on it, and then you're garnering, you'll garner authorities and point to them. But it does make me wonder to what extent that you're really on the same page with other people, as opposed to just, I mean, you're very good, Steve, at denoting what things are and categorizing what those things are, but then you're also very dogmatic about how you've categorized those things. And a lot of philosophy, including, I would say, a lot of logic in terms of what a category is or what a set is or what the parenthetical is describing in logical form, are also disputable, and that's why
nobody did not see. This is where I think you make a mistake, Michael. Nobody's arguing that. This is where I think you get confused. No offense.
Well,
I don't argue any of that. Okay, I'm the one arguing this. Very simple. Very, very simple, Michael. There are different usages to these terms. Aron and American Atheist said there's one usage. That's it. Everything else is wrong. They've even argued that if you read a dictionary that says otherwise, or it's been changed by Christians. They've gone so far to even make it a conspiracy type thing. The Christians have invaded philosophy, and they're changing the ways the words are used and the terminology. No, I say this: if you lack a belief, or if you believe that God does not exist, you could be considered an atheist. What I do argue is that most prevalent in philosophy, atheism is more generally, more often, much more, like 99%, I would even say, something along those lines, that is mostly held to be the belief that God does not exist. That doesn't mean if you just merely lack a belief, you're not an atheist. Okay, you can accept that different schema. This goes back to schemas, right? I don't accept that schema. That doesn't mean I don't think other people don't accept that schema. They can accept that schema. I've only argued if they accept that schema, they have to accept the baggage that comes along with it. The difference is that they're saying my schema is wrong. I've been told my schema is wrong. I've been told my schema is dishonest. I've been told I'm lying about my schema. That's the disconnect, Michael. And you know damn well that I'm not wrong. My schema is not incorrect. I'm not lying about it. And this is how it is in the philosophy.
Right, but no, but the point is that okay, so that's you, right? And then Aron has his schema, and other people have their schemas, and then you go to cross horns. And right now, when you're kind of backtoeing into the self, this is mine. It's not about them. But then when you're at the point it's like you're expressing yourself with the point of winning a battle, when the point of your battle was that it's your paradigm, it's yours.
But am I dishonest for having
no, you're not dishonest. I don't think you're being dishonest. I think you're being hawkish and a little edgy, a little dogmatic. But
Michael, is everything I say not in alignment to philosophical literature?
I might argue on some of the soundness and validity, but for the most part, you're sincere. You're sincere about what you're saying. I don't doubt that.
That wasn't my question, though.
No, go ahead, answer.
My question was very specifically: is not the most of my information? I'm not going to say all, obviously, but the vast majority, much more than Aron's putting out. What I tell people about these topics is not what it is lined. What you find if you go read about the material is if you want to go study this stuff and we learn about it, you would find out that what I'm saying exists in there. What Aron says is not the case. He says that in philosophy, and he just recently said that the sensu lato, colloquial definitions, is the one mostly found in the literature. And Stephen Hoyt paused and he said, dude, no, where do you get that from? What citation do you have for that? Because Oxford disagrees with him. It actually says it's not. Cambridge says it's not. That, I think, is a material facts problem. When somebody says that in the literature, which he hasn't read, right? How do you say that's the most common thing in the literature if you haven't read the literature?
Okay, that was one of my criticisms of you. Is not.
How's that a criticism?
It was of you on one of your posts, because it was that you guys were in a gather which reference, which history, which usage, quote it, post it, and like, oh, Stanford Dictionary of Philosophy seems to be like it, and this is what bugged me, right? Is that it's almost as if, okay, let's get academia of philosophers where there's many universities writing many things, but somehow you want to garner other professors to say, hey, look, let's agree on what Stanford's, and let's I have 30 citations, man. Stanford's just one of right. No, I know, but then it comes a number thing, like, okay, how many?
So
therefore that one's preferable.
Why is it Aron cannot produce a single citation that agrees with him? Not one. You can't either.
No, I think
you can't either, Michael. You cannot either. I know.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Can you produce a single citation that says that the colloquial version of atheism that American atheists uses is ubiquitous and the most commonly found in the literature? Can you find a single citation that says that?
Well, it's funny that you would say American atheist because you trademark the Great Bait Community trademark, and American Atheist is also a trademarked magazine, and it's a forum. So are you referring to the trademark American Atheist? Because I bet there's a reference there, or maybe you're referencing,
American Atheist is a political organization.
No, well, certainly, but even that organization tries to garner an approach, almost like a political approach to atheism, and then you want to, So, but then it becomes the difference, the cross section between a philosophical guy like yourself trying to stay strict to that appeal, as opposed to the political realm and usage. A whole vast.
But I'm not putting out misinformation. The difference is that they are. When somebody says something along the lines of, "Oh, we're all born atheists, and if you don't agree with that, you're lying," I'm sorry, that's bullshit. Come on, Michael. Even you have to call that out.
You would have to enter into the epistemological realm and have recursion.
Oh, I
have that.
I think now you just no.
No. I'm saying
wrong,
no. We could go for hours on that.
All right, but anyways, I got to get going.
Anyway, hey, pleasure
Michael.
finally talking to you again, Steve.
You're always welcome, Michael. You know that. It's just the problem is it's our conversations would go for hours because it's just a lot of
next time, let's talk about.
I'll take you on. You know I will. I'm not scared. You know I'm not scared of you, brother.
I'm not scared of having a horn lock. I'm scared about having a difficult time articulating exactly what it is I'm referencing. That's my criticism. But I think this, like when people,
this was good. This was good.
This will be interesting to get their feedback or read the.
No, I like to read. I love the feedback. To be honest with you, man, I love reading the comments. I read almost all.
Well, make certain to note that I'm crazy, right?
You're a loon.
Right.
You used to, but you used to be more normal. I don't know what the hell happened.
No. Well, I think that's just like
philosophy happened.
Yeah, you could see progressive, like, I don't know if he's got, like, what is it, mad cow disease, or just oh, you guys should have seen Michael back in the day. And what's funny was, because Michael's a brilliant guy, when he would argue with people that were inept as fuck, it was just oh man, blood. I mean, people didn't know what the hell to do because they would come in and they would be so white belt in this topics, right? And here's a guy who's well read. He has videos, and argues pretty well.
Videos, part nonsense. Anyway.
Yeah, you do a lot of more satire type videos, I think.
Yeah, some of it's sincere. Long rambling.
Yeah, long-winded, very long-winded. I'm not. I'm very succinct. All right, but anyways, guys, thanks for watching on this. Hopefully, I got my point across that when you're arguing logic, which I'm not an expert in, but I mean I know the basics. When you're arguing logic, you don't have to really resort to a lot of rhetoric, and you don't have to resort to a lot of appeals to things like dictionaries or fallacies and things of that nature, because it's just the argument, and you read the argument, you just accept the premises or you don't, and you see if it's valid or not. And honestly, I've never seen Aron take apart a logical argument. I've never say I don't accept premise one, and the reason being of any of these types of arguments. And we've asked him to, well, Aron, you keep on saying we're wrong. Here's the information. Which of these premises don't agree with? I mean, because I had the argument, Uriah had the argument. We both approached it the exact same way. Stephen Hoyt approaches it the exact same way. I know other people that have approached it the same way. It's not like we're all coming up with this weird argument out of our asses, right? This is why logic is something that's objective. If I say 1 + 1 = 2, Mike can go look at it and say 1 + 1 = 2. These are objective things when it comes to logic. And so if you accept the premises, you got to accept the conclusion if it's logically valid. And that's what I really wanted from Aron. Hey, look, if you think this is valid, because it is, because I mean, Michael, you at least tell the people, right? I mean, you may agree or disagree, but at least tell them
I think there's exceptions to what you said. I think
not soundness. Have you ever seen me use an invalid structure?
No, I was gonna defound the idea of the monad, right? As opposed to like the idea of oneness and quantity, meaning you got that whole like Matt Dillahunty like jar of gumballs, and there's either an even or odd number, a jar of gumballs in here, right? But then that's crazy because if at first you have to have an agreement either with the gumballs going in of what the number is, or you might get one of those gumballs that kind of goes like that, and then you're like, is that one gumball or two balls? Is that two balls or one ball? Is it if it's stuck, is that one ball or two? And then you might get a gumball where part of it's missing, and you're like, does that count as one, or is that none gumball? Or you might get like mini pieces of gum in the bottom.
The way I usually phrase it before I leave.
And so the point would be, if you're left, Steven, tell me if you agree.
I say they're quantized. I just say they're quantized whole gumball states. There you go.
Right, but that would require some interpretation or some consciousness to make that quantification. So it's always a consensus notion from the base that you're dealing with. Anytime you're referencing something in the world, like a gumball, right, that has some sort of entropic thing and an interpretive value to it, to make certain that there's no, exceptions, like, well, is that a gumball? I don't know. And does Jim's think so? Then you have to draw on consent.
Yeah, but I think that's all myopic relevancy, right?
Well,
I mean, if you just take it like somebody like being a baby.
To me, it's the way you're pejorative against
Being a Barry
semantics.
just said, he calls me
You say this is a semantical argument, and you use that as a pejorative, as opposed to semantics is a description of things that are grounded in philosophy.
But there are things that are semantic arguments that are just not worthy of consideration when we're talking about logic. Let's get real quick. Let's get to the gumball thing real quick.
Okay, good.
But the gumball thing, look, it doesn't matter what you want to quantize them. I usually take things arguendo. You have a jar and you have gumballs in it, right? That's it. You can put marbles, it doesn't matter, but there's something in those, and they're either odd or even, right? We're going to be going by classical logic. This is why you don't. I know you're being a baby. Barry said you're a dialtheist, and I accept dialtheism. Don't get me wrong. I think dialtheism is actually very fascinating.
But you could confuse dialtheism with paraconsistence.
No, there's a type of paraconsistent. Paraconsistent logic allows.
Right.
Paraconsistent logic allows for. A paraconsistent logic doesn't have the law of non-contradiction, but dialtheism allows for true contradictions without principal explosion.
Right. Or, well, yeah, it's interesting for you.
Who you fucking with here, Michael? Who you fucking with, man?
It's okay. It's okay that you do it, but there's some realms of paraconsistent logic that are not dialetheism. You mentioned anitheism.
Yes.
Which would, yeah. And so
all dialtheisms are a form of paraconsistent, but not all paraconsistent is dialtheistic.
Right, and so my point is that in one of our back and forths, I had mentioned that something was paraconsistent, and you said dialetheist, and I said no, and it was in the never. Anyway, my point and my point is that the idea of questing to find quantity is under question sometimes when you're referencing anything in the entropic empirical world.
Yeah,
it could be arguable, hence it requires agreement. That's what
I do understand what you're saying. Anyways, Rags, did you learn anything from this, Rags? Are you?
Well, if I knew what half of these words meant, I might have
so make them up as we go along. Yeah, we just think they sound really cool. Yeah.
Well, I don't doubt that they sound cool.
Well, but Steve says this. He'll say,
"But you see why we want to go against him unless you know what the hell he's talking about?" Because, he's not. Because Michael doesn't make this shit up. He may ramble, but it's not word salad as people. I love it when people say things like word salad. No, Michael's not talking word salad. If you know,
especially because salad's good for you.
No, I wouldn't say that always. Michael has had some cases of word salad, but
I guess you can have some nasty ass salads out there.
When he's traveling toward the end of the conversation.
X-lass and ass talk. I thought you were going to bring up Pepto, and then you said something like Podium HD or.
All right, guys, wrap it up.
Steve, let me just ground this out, right? Yep. Let me ground this out. The idea of oneness is debatable, but if you can hold that ground, that little raft of foundation, then a lot of what you say follows.
Appreciate that. I appreciate that. So look, I'll take this. I don't really give a shit if people think I'm smart or genius or intelligent. I don't care. All I give a shit is that you have intelligent people that don't think I'm a dumbass. That's to me is more important. Michael's intelligent. I don't think Michael thinks I'm a dumbass. That's cool with me. That's all I want to be. That's the level of
smart ass, Steve. Big time. Big.
Fair enough. But I want to be at that level where intelligent people don't think I'm inept or incompetent or a dumbass, because I've never had one, in my knowledge, think so. So I don't have to be the smartest person in the room. I just want to be the dumbest. That's what we have, other people. And Rags, I wasn't going to say you, so
I am the wisest of the wise. I exude wisdom from all my orifices and pores.
You exude something or other. All right, go check out Rags' channel if you haven't. Michael's channel. I don't think Steve. Steve, do you have a channel?
Yeah, but I don't really share much on it.
We'll go check out Rag's channel. He needs more followers. Poor guy only has like 300,000. So
It's a living.
Yeah, well, I don't know what I think that you, what did you, sub for sub or something? I don't know.
Sub for sub, guys. If you sub to me, I'll sub to you.
No, go watch his stuff. He's earned his subs. He has some pretty great videos. All right, guys, leave me comments. Let me know what you guys think. Let me know what you guys think about the argument, and I'll try to respond as much as I can. I guarantee it. If you just respond, you're wrong, or the logic's wrong, and you don't give me any reason, or you don't accept it and you don't give me any reason, I'm probably not going to bother with you. This is one of those times where if you withhold information, you need to give me a reason, or I don't give a fuck. Okay, you didn't to show the argument wrong if you don't give me a reason why the argument's wrong, and it's not an argument from ignorance. Okay.